Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. Introducing first, Frankie Stats Janisch. And their co-host, the man of controversy, Mr. Bryan David. And finally, Gilmore. Let's get ready to Schmoedown.
Hello everyone, welcome to a very special edition of the show. This is the spoiler review of Star Wars The Last Jedi. We're going to get into every itty-bitty, teeny-weeny detail of the movie, break it down for you. What?
Brad,
what?
That's not what we do here. I'm sorry.
Oh, wrong show. Okay. Let me do that again. What's up, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? Welcome to the Schmoedown Rundown, the official after show of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. I am your host for the evening, and maybe for the foreseeable future, we hope. I am Brad Gilmore. I am joined by my normal cast of characters. Introducing first from Chi-Town. He is a fan of Michael Jordan, and a fun fact, he has never visited Kevin McAllister's home, which means his citizenship to the great city of Chicago should be revoked. Y'all make some noise for my guy, Frank Janisch. Frank, how are you?
Yeah, I was doing pretty good until you wanted my citizenship revoked. And by the way, the house is not in the Chicago city limits, so I just want to clarify.
The mythology of Home Alone says that it is. Also, over here, the man of controversy, we spent about 40 minutes talking basketball before the recording, and then about 3 minutes of doing our Tommy Wiseau impressions. Y'all make some noise for my guy, Bryan Davids. Bryan, how are you?
Instead of the man of controversy, I'd like to be referred as the master code breaker from now on within this show. Thank you.
Okay. The man of controversy himself, Bryan Davids. We have a lot to get to today. We are just, it's right around the corner. The Spectacular is right around the corner, and I cannot believe it. We had one match this week, but oh, what a match that it was. We have a lot to get to. I guess let's start off, though, with the news. Let's start off with the news from the week. Bryan Davids, obviously there are things that we all know we have to get to. Why don't you start us off? What's our first topic we need to discuss here today on the show?
Well, let's start off with the Star Wars match from the upcoming Schmoedown Spectacular. As we all know, Sam Witwer wanted kind of an Iron Man match of sorts against Fredo Napzok, and the league wasn't quite sure how to handle this, but now we have an official announcement. This came via today's ranking special with Thad and Harloff, and apparently they are going to grant Mr. Witwer his wish, as they are doing a 30-minute match where it's just question after question, all whiteboard action. So Witwer doesn't have to worry about knowing rules and knowing when he can use multiple choice and when he can repeat, because it's all going to be just nonstop. Answer as many questions as possible within a 30-minute period of time. So you would think this has to favor Witwer since it was his idea, but during this announcement, guys, Harloff stole a joke of mine. In response to Thad's Iron Man match contract confirmation, Harloff said that everything I ever said about you, I take it back. Now, you guys might remember when I thanked Harloff for replacing my microphone, which blew out after 80 consecutive shows on SK Plus a few weeks ago. At the end of my thank you speech, I said, I take back everything I ever said about you, Christian. It made Frank laugh, so he might remember. So publicly, Christian has to disempower me and pretend like he doesn't agree with me on things, but clearly he agrees with me all the time on matters such as the Survivor Series not being feasible in their current studio. But this stolen joke is proof that he listens to me. So I just had to get that little mini rant out there. It's a great way to start the show from the Master Code Breaker.
Well, the man of controversy himself. But when you talk about this Iron Man match, though, this is a big announcement because coming from wrestling, the Iron Man match is always something that you really look forward to. And it's not just two random guys thrown in there. right? You're not going to see a guy like The Undertaker and The Big Show going in an Iron Man match. These are about the workhorses. These are about the guys who are so skilled at their craft. They're at a next level, and they can entertain an audience of 20,000 or more people for an hour's time limit. In this case, it's 30 minutes of Star Wars action between Witwer and Napshock. These are two guys who know Star Wars probably better than anybody who walks around those Collider hallways and these Schmoes Know hallways. I mean, these guys, Witwer is unbelievable. And Napshock is the one guy who got the best of him at that big Star Wars Championship match we saw a few months ago. So I think that the Iron Man format is the perfect way, more than the traditional 3-rounder, our 5-rounder for a championship match. This is the perfect way to find out which of these two men know more about one of the greatest sagas ever in cinematic history, Star Wars. And God, I'm looking forward to it. The Iron Man match is a perfect concept.
Remember what I said last week. Witwer, the biggest threat to Witwer is Witwer himself. He would have had a perfect match, that 5-way match. He would have gone perfect with multiple choice had he realized that he could have used multiple choice, even though Christian was screaming for him to use multiple choice. He overlooked it, so now he doesn't have to worry about any of that. He just has to answer questions. So, Frank, I presume that you are excited about this Iron Man format.
Oh, I'm very excited about this Iron Man format. This is trivia at its purest, and if we learned anything this past week, we have a lot of trivia purists in this community, and we'll get to that, I'm sure, later in the show. But I'm really looking forward to see how this plays out. There's going to be no multiple choice, no do I spin the wheel first, do I spin the wheel second, none of that garbage. Not that it's garbage, but it's just going to be pure trivia in Star Wars. Everyone is that I've talked to about this is really excited to see what happens with an Iron Man match, the first of its kind in the Schmoedown. Perhaps if it goes well and it's exciting and thrilling, we could see it maybe in regular trivia, who knows, but we're getting it here in Star Wars. I'm excited to see it. I'm curious how many questions we're going to burn through to determine a winner. I can't even think of 60 questions, 78, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see how many questions they go through. I feel real bad for Chris Salinsky at this point because I'm sure he's at least going to prepare 100 questions just to be safe. That's a lot of trivia. That's a lot of questions, a lot of answers. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, so I'm really, really looking forward to this, maybe more than anything at Spectacular, maybe.
Well, we know you're a big Star Wars guy. The match last week was one of your favorites all year. You called it your Super Bowl. You got it. And you know what? You weren't off on that. You know, after I went back and watched it a second time, and what a great match last week was, that Star Wars match, the 5-way. Oh, jeez. Can't talk about it enough, Frank, but we already talked about it enough because we got to talk more about news. Brian Davis, what else we got?
Well, we can't bury the lead, and even though it's part of our upcoming recap, Ken returned to the Lion's Den. He returned to Top Den. He embarrassed Rachel once again and did not show up for their match, the Nerds Watch versus Blofeld's Cat. And so this kind of came to a head once again during the match, which we'll get to. But on Inside Schmoedown this week, Riley was hosting the show instead of Ken. And now we kind of have an understanding as to why Ken bailed on hosting a couple weeks ago. He was plotting his heel turn. But Riley interviewed Ken just to see what the heck was going on with this guy's head right now. And he's basically saying that Rachel Cushing didn't treat him right. Ken acted like she took her time entertaining misfit offers when he was the one who threw that ball in her court after the tournament loss to Above the Line. He was the one that gave her time to think about if she wants to keep playing with him or not. He said that he lost his smile. And guess what? She didn't take very long to tell him that she wanted to play with him still. She wanted no part of the misfits, something that she proved every time Jay Washington ambushed her on stage. In any event, she told Ken months ago on Inside Schmoedown that the ball was back in his court and that she wanted to keep playing with the Nerds Watch, but he kept jerking her around. He betrayed her. Ken is who I thought he is. He is Fredo. So the fact that he's trying to spin this narrative that she was entertaining the Misfits and all these other people is total nonsense. And when Rachel was on this show last, I said, how can you give this guy so much time when countless players would jump at the chance to play with you? So she was loyal to a fault, and that's why you can't be loyal, folks, because people like Fredo Napzok will exploit it. She trusted someone who talks the talk but doesn't walk the walk. He'll sell his soul for microphones and jungle princesses. So Anna Ken was a nickname that I think Riley came up with. Someone came up with it. Anna Ken. That's great. Fredo's great. So, guys, what are your thoughts on the return of Anakin Napzok?
Frank, why don't you go first?
You know, I was quite upset with Ken. I'm sorry. As you say, Bryan, I was quite upset with Fredo. And I can't believe I'm saying those words. I can't believe I'm borrowing language that Brian Davids has said. So, Ken, when you make me say things that Brian has said in regards to you, you know I'm really upset.
Hey, Christian borrows my jokes. You're in good company, bro.
All right. But as far as Fredo, and what I realized also is that I'm too invested in this. I'm too invested, but that's also a good thing. I appreciate how well I've gotten invested in this, and it only furthers that investment when I see Fredo Napzok betray just such a sweetheart in Rachel Cushing, one of the few gems in this league, one of the few bright spots in this league, the good people in this league, and I don't know who this Ken Napzok, this Fredo Napzok guy is anymore. It really did piss me off. And, I hope he goes down in flames against Sam Witwer. I hope everything comes crumbling to his feet. I hope he gets nothing that he thinks he's going to get. You know what, Brad, go ahead. You can talk.
You're flustered. You're flustered, Frank. I mean, you're very upset by this. But guess what, guys? This guy, Brad Gilmore, is not surprised by this at all. I said last week, in reference to one of the great Jay-Z songs off the September 11th, 2001 album, The Blueprint, song cry, once a good girl's gone bad, she's gone forever. And once a good Fredo is gone, he's gone forever. Gone bad, he's gone forever. Because I saw this coming from a mile away. The losing of the smile, I wasn't buying it even back then. All right, you can steal every line from Shawn Michaels you want to. All right, it's not going to convince old Brad Gilmore here. Ken, he showed us who he really is. And and he is who, Bryan, he is who you said he is. And I can't believe, Frank, just like you, I'm giving credit to Brian Davids on this show. But I am. Bryan, you were right. You called this from a mile away. And I want Sam Witwer to avenge and we're about to get into it, but to avenge Rachel Cushing, to avenge people who've been fans of the Nerd Watch and Mr. Napshock at the desk and in competition. Sam Witwer is going to take now what Ken Napzok loves oh so dearly, that Star Wars Championship title. It's coming off your waist, brother. At least I hope so. Brian Davids, I know there was some stuff on Inside Schmoedown, but anything else you want to add to Ken Napzok?
Well, we basically just covered the Inside Schmoedown stuff, but I mean, that's what's interesting about this is that Thad, even though he couldn't punish Fredo for not showing up to the Blofeld match, he did get him to sign this Iron Man contract. So Sam Witwer has the format of his choosing, and that's going to come back to haunt Fredo, I think. And even though I'm a top denner, I think this is going to end up a lot like the RMB move, the Robert Meyer Burnett move, where Tommy D thought he had all the leagues covered, including Inner Geekdom, only RMB imploded as soon as he joined Top Den. So Ken, I think, will soon be beltless after Spectacular, thanks to the immortal Sam Witwer. But the Jungle Princess, that's why he joined the Den. Dagnino knew that Fredo couldn't resist her calls for too long. So even though he's going to lose his belt soon, he still has the Jungle Princess. So that's good enough for Fredo, but that's not why Tommy D recruited Fredo. He recruited Fredo for that belt. So Tommy D is not going to be happy when Witwer takes him out.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going to have to see at the Spectacular, which, by the way, later on in the show, we will be giving our, not predictions, but we're going to kind of do an overview of all the matches going down at the Spectacular. And also, the Outlaw, John Roca, will join us at the end of the broadcast to talk about his match and what he's looking forward to in the Spectacular. Guys, without further ado, let's get to match number 1 this week. We've kind of addressed the
only match this week.
Yeah, well, you are right. The only match this week, the number 1 match this week, the Nerds Watch going against Blofeld's Cat. We've been addressing it here in the news segment of the show. Ken Napshock, at the beginning of this match, was a no-show. He didn't show up. We didn't know what was going on.
Well, don't skip ahead quite yet. I mean, he did do the promo with Rachel. He was there for the promos, so they clearly shot those earlier in the week. So who knows what happened here? I mean, he just went for a drive.
We know what happened. We know what happened, and we'll get into what happened. The aftermath of the match, what happened immediately following the match. We'll get into it, but
he shot the promo with her. That's extra cruel.
Yeah, this is deception. This is deception at the highest order. To know you're going to do the promo fully knowing you're not going to show up for the match. I mean, what kind of man does that? It just. Go ahead, Brad.
Frank is flustered tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Talking about the promos, we thought that we saw, Ken Napshock and Rachel Cushing, come back together and become unified to take down Blofeld's Cat. Blofeld's Cat, they felt confident, right? I mean, they it's not unlike them at all times. Any member of the Lions Den, they always feel confident because they always feel like they have an ace in the hole. And a lot of people, you can say what you want to about him, but Tom Dagnino is a very savvy strategist when it comes to the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. Whether you believe that statement or not, I think that he is one of the best advocates / manager in the show's history. And, he always has an ace in the hole, something up his sleeve. He's the contemptible consultant, Tom Dagnino, as far as I'm concerned. Brian Davids, anything in these promos stick out to you, aside from the unity that seemed, the fake unity of one Ken Napshock and Rachel Cushing?
I want to give credit to the hype package that started off this match. The guys, all the post guys, Cobster and Aaron and Thad and Jonathan and Joey and Tommy and Billy and all the post guys do a phenomenal job.
Calvin, right? Yeah.
Theodore, Calvin, they all do a great job when they put together these hype packages because they have to go through all these clips and put it all together. And it's really great for people that are new to the Schmoedown, to where you get a story download if you haven't been watching every single match and watching every single episode of Inside Schmoedown and whatnot. So they ran through all the history of the Nerds Watch as well as Rachel and Ken individually. Great stuff there. And then right before the promo, the little intro with Christian and Riley recapping Ken's turn and then a return back to Rachel. I got to say, I like Riley calling matches. I like Riley calling matches because he's an inactive player right now. I like when inactive players are at the table versus active players. Just, I could get into this, but I'm not. But just listen to what I'm saying here. And it is frustrating, though, that the final match of the season, pre-spectacular, still doesn't have Jen at the table. But we are getting Jen at the table for a Tuesday spectacular preview with that. So at least we've got that Jen at the table to look forward to. But I was hoping to get her in an actual match before the season end. Unfortunately, maybe in 2018. But the fans have spoken their desire to see it. We will see it. It's just a matter of time. And to correct the league, once again, Rachel didn't just give Ken an absurd amount of time. Ken first gave Rachel time to figure out what she wanted to do, and she quickly said she wanted Ken to play with her still. She quickly got back to him. So Ken still jerked her around for months, even though he knew Rachel was waiting on him, while supposedly finding a smile. Instead, he was being wooed by the Lions Den. It wasn't Rachel being wooed by the Misfits or entertaining offers. He was entertaining the Lions Den. So once again, Fredo is who I think he is. I'm still disappointed that Rachel would even grovel to have him back when he hung her out to dry, despite all the patience and all the good faith she showed him. Playing with Rachel Cushing is a privilege, and plenty of people will be lining up to do so. Mark my words. She will have the last laugh. Promos. Ken was glad that Rachel reminded him of what they were meant to do. However, she reminded him of this months ago. This is nothing new. As far as the Crusher, Rachel regrets giving Ken a little bit too much time. She felt that it allowed Tom to come in and cause chaos. She regrets giving that time that I said that she shouldn't be giving him. No offense. And like I said on the show months ago, I said, don't give this guy too much time, because look at what Tommy D can do with Tom. He corrupted her partner. So Ken was playing this straight, though. He was acting like he was on her side. He said he appreciated the time and the faith. He says he'll reward her for such faith. And that's not what happened. And as far as the Lions Den, Dagnino pretended to be outraged by the flip-flop. He said, who does this guy think he is? And this is such a valid statement. Ken is not good enough at trivia to pit two teams and a stable against each other. Who does this guy think he is? But it was nice to see Top Den in full force for the first time in a while, minus JTE, of course. Now, they still have one of the greatest Schmoedown shots ever when they first assembled in a promo around the time when Heather Grace Hancock first joined via a master stroke from Tommy D. But Tommy D once again recruited her knowing that Kenny Napshock wouldn't be able to resist her fiery seduction forever. Grace said she's going to lock the locks on her house. She was going to change the locks on her house. And Tom said, you hear that, Flip-Flop? So Flip-Flop was sweating already, and this all sets up what happened later where he turned on Rachel again. So bottom line, Ken, lose my number, said Wicked City's Heather Grace Hancock. Brad, what did you think of these promos?
Well, I do like how you said that he was nervous already, and there was vomit on his sweater already, moss spaghetti. He was nervous, but on the surface, he looked calm and ready to drop bombs, but he kept on forgetting. I digress. I thought that the promos were good.
What was that?
Don't even ask. It actually won an Oscar. To actually tell you the truth, why you know your movie history. If only Rachel Cushing were here. So I enjoyed the promos. I like Lions Den. I hope that doesn't make me a bad guy on this show. I enjoy them. I've always loved a good heel faction my entire life. So I enjoyed them. You really covered all the great points, Brian Davids. Frank, do you want to add anything? Don't. Come on now. I just gave you a compliment. Don't douche it up. Frank, do you have any? I understand that. We'll get to that later. Okay, we'll get to that later. Frank, anything you want to add?
The only thing I'm going to say here is Tom Dagnino, a.k.a. Bobby Gucci. I got to say, that name really is just catchy. I like saying Bobby Gucci. I don't know why, I just do, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, maybe he should form a team with Bobby Shmurda and Gucci Mane. Moving on.
Lots of people have said it, but Bobby Gucci is the Andy Kaufman. He is the Tony Clifton of the Schmoedown. He is the Andy Kaufman of this league, and he's one of the best things to ever happen to it.
Absolutely.
And it's a privilege to be able to watch him work.
I agree. I love him. I love Bobby Gucci. He's a great man. He's a great man. He's a great man. And a great American.
Brad, I got to ask you, what did you think of Blofeld's Cat and their entrance song of "Don't You Wish Your Girlfriend Was Hot Like Me"?
It's called "Don't Ya," spelled CHA, by the Pussycat Dolls off their debut album in 2006, PCD. I digress. I love the song. Nicole Scherzinger is one of the most beautiful women ever. That's what I thought. I think they also have one of the best team names ever. I've never gotten to say this on the show. Blofeld's Cat is a great name.
Blofeld. Like Seinfeld. Blofeld.
Blofeld's Cat.
A lot of people say Blofeld, and it drives me nuts just because Blofeld is such a famous villain.
I didn't say Blofeld. You don't have to correct. I didn't say Blofeld.
You almost did. I didn't
nothing. I'm from Texas.
But I've been meaning to make this correction in general just because so many people, even Thad, has been saying Blofeld by mistake. And we have to respect James Bond. That's all I'm saying.
Some people say kayfabe instead of kayfabe. But anyway, moving right along,
one question for you. One question for you, Brad. What did you think when Bobby Gucci said "Time's up, Harloff"? Do you think he's got a plan for Harloff's belt that we haven't been privy to yet?
You know what? That's a great thing that you just brought up, Brian Davids, because I noticed that when watching the match. It was during the entrances. I wondered what it was. Christian's retort was, "I'm not the commissioner." And you know, Bobby Gucci kind of looked at him like that wasn't what he was talking about. Who knows if Tom Dagnino pulls off the signing of the century with maybe Sam Levine? I think that it would be if there was a Schmoedown Hall of Fame, he would have to be the first inductee, and Christian would have to give the induction speech because it would just be too phenomenal.
Interesting.
It would be too phenomenal. I don't know. Frank, did you have a theory about that at all? Did you pick up on that comment?
Frankie Numbers, let me add for Frankie. Frankie, do you think it's that, or do you think that Bobby Gucci is planning to win the Manager Bowl so that he can then nominate Snyder or JZE to take on the winner of Levine and Harloff?
Him winning that match is a huge variable, so I don't know if he can really bank on that, being so confident as he is when he's stating, time's up, Harloff. That's a little too confident to rest on his trivial laurels. So I'm very curious what he's going to do, and given his history at pulling off these miraculous coups, if you will, this is, I think, going to blow everyone's mind. And I think we should all be ready and prepared for that, whatever it is, whoever he signs, whether it's Brad Says Sam, whether maybe I've seen things out there in the community saying Christian's really a double agent. He's a sleeper. He's really part of the Lion's Den. I've seen this theory out there. We've seen some crazy stuff out there. I don't know if any of that's going to come true, but I think in the end it will be something crazy. And hey, it's Bobby Gucci. His record speaks for itself.
I kind of like the Sam idea, but then we've got Above the Line playing the Patriots, so I think that kind of takes it out right there. But guys, what if Bobby Gucci? What if whomever wins the Manager Bowl? What if he just invites that person into the den to where he can then challenge the winner of Harloff Levine no matter what by signing the winner of the Manager Bowl?
Oh,
what about that?
That's another good theory, and I don't put anything past Tom Dagnino. Once again, one of the great minds in the movie Trivia Schmoedown. I say, guys, I guess we can get to the entrance of Rachel Cushing. Rachel Cushing came out, like the Nerds Watch. After several calls, though, by Christian Harloff. He had to say Nerds Watch a few times. Finally, Rachel Cushing comes out. No Ken Napshock. And there's some discrepancies. There's some controversy going on because with no Ken Napshock, we weren't sure what would go on in a team match. This is a 2-on-2 team match. It seemed like Christian Harloff was commissioning from the desk and was trying to make the match happen, and getting somebody. Even our guest later, the Outlaw John Roca, was mentioned as maybe filling in. One of their other members was mentioned filling in. And then Thad, the interim commissioner, comes out and says, no, a contract was signed between Blofeld's Cat and Nerd Watch, which is Rachel and Ken. If there's no
Michelle Boyd.
And Michelle Boyd, of course, yes.
Michelle Boyd, she wasn't there, so she couldn't play. So.
She wasn't there. She couldn't play. So what was to happen? What was going on? And they came to the agreement to allow Rachel Cushing to compete by herself in this is the first ever handicap match in Movie Trivia Schmoedown history, at least to my knowledge. And this was unprecedented call by Thad, and I was shocked by it. I didn't see this coming. I thought that, Ken Napshock would show up for the match, but perhaps betray Rachel in some sort of maybe shave some points, if you know what I mean,
Ooh.
throw the game. Paul Wrecking
But
Crew
they always respect the game. They won't mess with the game while playing the game. They will mess with things around the game, but the motto has always been don't F with the game.
No, I agree. I
hear what you're saying.
But what an underhanded move that would be for Ken Napshock to come in there and throw the game on purpose. But Rachel Cushing decided, I'm going to go it alone. And if there's anybody in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown that could do it all by herself in a team format, it is Rachel Cushing. And that's what we got to see here, guys. I mean, it was a really crazy start to this match. What did y'all think about them making it a handicap match? Frank, you first.
Yeah, very interesting that Rachel did, in fact, agree to a handicap match. But I understand why she did. She has her honor. She's representing the Nerds Watch, whether this guy Napshock is part of it or not. And unfortunately, Michelle Boyd wasn't there. So I like that she stood in the face of adversity, in the face of the situation that Ken has thrown her into, the Lions Den, quite frankly. And she dealt with it head on, and you have to give mad props to that. So I was very proud to see Rachel stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I have to believe, and I did believe, that she had a legit shot at keeping this first round pretty close because she is that good. She has scored a perfect round before. We've seen her in this season alone do some incredible stuff in her young career here in the Schmoedown. And Draco and Robert Meyer Burnett, they're very up and down. She beat Andraco in the tournament. Robert Meyer Burnett hasn't had really a lot of success at all in the league, aside from his initial showing in the Inner Geekdom. But, so I thought it was actually somewhat fair. Not really, but because it's a handicap match, it's not ever going to be fair. Rachel.
Before we get to the round-by-round coverage, let me just ask you both, what punishment does Ken deserve since this was a breach of contract? He agreed to play against Blofeld's cat as the Nerds Watch with Rachel Cushing. So one could argue that the Iron Man match at Spectacular against Sam could be a form of punishment, but it's not actually part of the punishment. He deserves a second punishment for not fulfilling the contract. So what would you guys suggest as far as a potential punishment for Ken?
Oh, that's a great question. I haven't really put a lot of thought into a punishment,
That alluded to having to do it to start 2018.
So, Frank, what do you think? Do you think, much like, and I don't like bringing up this situation, but much like Yuli Gurriel in the World Series, since it was a championship match, they didn't suspend him for that awful gesture that he made toward Yu Darvish, right. But they said, hey, we're going to suspend you for 6 games at the start of next season. Should we, like you said, Bryan, and Thad alluded to, should he be suspended for maybe a month of competition, maybe a couple weeks, maybe one match?
That did confirm it's a 2018 punishment since 2017 is already in the books as far as scheduling and whatnot. So he did confirm it'll be 2018.
And you can't suspend him for his championship match. Obviously, he needs to defend the title.
Right. So I think what should happen is that he does not get to be a part of any kind of team in 2018. He cannot compete in 2018 as a team. His Schmoedown Star Wars career, I think, is only relegated to if he wins the title, retains the title, he can defend it when need be. Other than that, I think he should be suspended for a whole year from all play.
Wow, that's a pretty stiff. That's a pretty stiff.
It is stiff because you know what? He stiffed Rachel, so you know what? He gets it right back.
But it has to be Star Wars related because teams, I don't think he'd want to play in teams anyway. He's not good enough to play in teams. I don't know who would want to team with him in teams. Like Star Wars is his value. That's why Bobby Gucci picked him up, was for Star Wars supremacy. So the punishment has to be in relation to the Star Wars league.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like if he wins, if he wins the belt, then he's got to defend it when need be. But if he loses the belt, then he can't play Star Wars match for that whole year. He can't play at all.
Or he has to win. Oh, he'll win 3 straight. I was going to say he has to win 3 straight before getting a contender match, but he's good enough to win 3 straight. So we have to maybe ban him from. But then we lose a great competitor from the Star Wars League. But as Alex,
we don't lose a great
showed,
guy. So
as Scrimshaw showed, as Shayna showed, there's plenty of Star Wars players that we can bring in to fill the Napshock suspension void.
Absolutely.
Well, if you want to punish him in something Star Wars related, just make him watch the prequels on a continuous loop for 365 days.
But he likes the prequels.
He's a prequels. He loves the prequels.
Okay, then make him watch the Star Wars Holiday Special on loop. How about that?
There you go.
Okay, that's right. Anyway, let's get into the round-by-round action. This is handicap style. I mean, this is like I said, an unprecedented move here in the movie.
By the way, one more point regarding the handicap stuff. The closest thing I can think of to this. As far as a handicap match, you could argue Snyder versus Umberto, Makuga versus Dagnino. But in all seriousness, the closest thing I can think of is when Makuga thought he was playing Finstock the first time, and instead came out Android dressed as Finstock in disguise, and yet Makuga had to play Android as Finstock nonetheless. So this is the closest thing I can think of to that, where Makuga was kind of playing in a handicap match against a much stronger player, or so we thought at the time. And Makuga somehow ended up winning that match, even though Android or Findroid or Findraco, as we called them at the time, was the heavy favorite because he was coming off that unbelievable match against the Beast where they both set records in their debuts and had the most points scored and all that. So that's the closest analog to this. And there's, technically speaking, there's never quite been a 2-on-1 situation like this to my recollection.
Well, someone did post in the MTS Facebook page. It's quite funny. It's a joke. It's when Wolves of Steel played ETC and Ricky got all 8 wrong in the first round. So, I mean, you could point towards that. But
when I said Umberto versus Snyder, I was going for the same kind of joke, but that's a better one, in fact.
Okay. So. Well, let's move on to the play, guys. Round 1 ended 7-4, Blofeld's Cat on top. Frank Janisch, your analysis of Rachel Cushing's first round performance all by herself, and anything stick out to you as far as the questions?
You know, not really so much the questions seemed fairly difficult, and you know, the thing about this first round, well, the handicap match overall, there's no shame in losing this handicap match. And Draco and Robert Meyer Burnett to them. There's no shame in that, but given the fact that they missed so many questions, it left the door wide open for Rachel to capitalize. And I think this is what makes the loss a little more tough to deal with, knowing that you actually really, for real, could have pulled off. If you've pulled off a great first round, you could have won this thing. But like I said, there's really no shame in losing a handicap match. But I think the questions did seem a little rough in the beginning, at least. You know, she got only 1 out of her first 5 questions. She finished strong, getting the last 3. And Draco, Robert Meyer Burnett, really had no rhythm at all. So it was a very odd match, given the fact it was a handicap match and that these players combined only scored 11 points. So it's a very peculiar match, just all the way around up to this point.
Brian David, 7-4. Rachel still in striking distance. Your analysis of the first round?
Yeah, everybody played terribly in this first round, and this gave me hope that Rachel could pull off the upset. She scored 4 points, while R&B scored 4 points, while Android scored 3. So nobody was trying to run away with this thing yet. I was shocked that only Robert Meyer Burnett was able to get source code. Question 1, one of my favorite films. Question 2, Blues Brothers, they try to save an orphanage. Rachel Cushing, only one to get that, which is crazy. And then question 3, another universal miss that's early in the round. That's always bizarre when that happens. And then question 4, I wanted to highlight this just because I don't think we've seen many of these question formats before. It was which came first, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. So instead of movie release years or dates, I want to see more questions like this because it's an easier version of movie release dates where, you know, you have to think of which one came out soon or first or later. So I hope we get more of those. It's an interesting question format. So whoever wrote that, keep writing them. Now, question 5, Juno Skinner in True Lies, 3-1.
Great question. Difficult though.
Universal miss once again. Tia Carrera. Brad, it sounds like you're a big Tia Carrera fan.
Who isn't?
You knew it.
Amen.
And then shockingly, everybody got question 6. James Cagney from White Heat. So they don't know Tia Carrera, yet they know James Cagney's quote from White Heat, made it Ma, top of the world, etc. And then once again, Rachel Cushing, only one correct for that Wreck-It Ralph question. So animation continues to be the thorn in the side of many Lions Denners, especially the Blofeld guys. And then Darabont's directorial debut, everybody got it. Shawshank, which my dad foolishly passed on a chance to produce. So all in all, very interesting round. But I just want to make sure that whoever wrote question 4 whomever wrote question 4, let's get more of those because it's a very cool format and it's better than having to name the movie release year.
And shout out to Robert Meyer Burnett for clarifying theatrical release for the Frank Darabont question. He wanted to specify that, and the announcers gave him that specificity on that question. So I thought it was not a great round one by any one competitor, but I did like that Rachel Cushing was still in striking distance at the end of the round. That definitely gave me hope. And
keep in mind, had Fredo Napzok showed up to play, he probably would have gotten 3 points, and they would have been tied at the very least.
At the very least, I do agree with that, Brian David. So let's actually get into round number 2. The round ends 19-13. Blofeld's cat on top. Rachel Cushing, though, only down by 6 points at the end of the round. When she spun the wheel, she made a great deal because it landed on Spinner's Choice. She went to Oscar Movies. Brian Davids, do you think that she performed well with probably her strongest category?
I thought she made a big strategical error here. She spun new releases, and I think that's a category that you have to go with just because it's stuff that is 6 to 12 months old. It's fresh in our minds. It's not going to be too specific because of the category itself. It's going to be mostly surface level stuff, as the new release category has proven in the past. Now, the reason I think it's a strategical error as far as Oscars goes is because it's a category that's been pulled enough to where it's going to get deeper and deeper. But more importantly, Mark Andreyko and Burnett, for that matter, but especially Andreyko, they're also good at Oscars. So if she happens to get stumped, they are going to pounce and they're going to steal what she doesn't answer. So I would have punished those guys with new releases, and that's going to come back to haunt her, mark my words, because they may have gotten new releases and they may have gotten some super easy new release questions. So even though I get that it's her strength, it's also the strength of her opponent, and the strategy backfired in this case. So question 1, Goldie Hawn's only Oscar, multiple choice, Cactus Flower. Question 2, most director noms. This is where Rachel's so damn impressive. William Wyler. I've never even heard of William Wyler.
No, nor have
and
I.
He's got the most directorial noms. Now question 3, this is where exactly where her opponents can kill her. Pacino's first nomination, multiple choice. She missed it. Serpico. However, they didn't steal it. So typically, this would have been stolen because it's a pretty well-known trivia. But question 4, 2008 Best Picture, automatic Slumdog. Question 5, this is the big issue that I had after the match. Now, actually, this wasn't a big issue I had after the match. I did have an issue with this, though. This is another example of a question whose wording is way too confusing. Hence, Rachel's confusion on screen. Christian also kind of read the question in a confusing manner from how it was written on the screen. He said Tom Hanks won his first Best Actor Oscar for Philadelphia, a film that only won other Oscars, plural, in which category? Singular. Thus, the original wording of the question must have been far more confusing than what was presented on the screen. So they were asking for a singular answer, but it was read as plural. So the wording and the way it was read was very confusing, and it threw off Rachel, and she was very confused as a result. And this led to a big steal by Android. Streets of Philadelphia, Bruce Springsteen. So, this wasn't really something you could challenge, but it was just worded in such a way that it confused the issue. So anytime you can be concise, please do so. But very complicated question when you consider plural versus singular. And then question 6, Berenger and Defoe nominated for Platoon. Rachel Cushing coming up big in a film that most women wouldn't be able to answer. So this is why I'm a big fan of Rachel, because she comes up big in these moments. So end of a 7-point round out of 12 for Rachel. even though Oscars is her strong point, though, you've got 9 decades worth of questions that can be thrown at her. I would have played it safe with new releases. I don't know why anyone would ever balk at new releases when it's surface level stuff. It's surface level stuff because they're not going to spoil stuff.
Yeah, it's
surface level. They're not going to spoil stuff too.
But yeah, it's surface level. But you got to have at least seen some of it. I mean, because we're going to see Blofeld's Cat get new releases, and there were certain questions in those in that category where you would had to have seen the movie in order to answer them. And I think with new releases, a lot of times you don't have time to get to it. Sometimes people want to wait until they come on home video.
That's not the case, though. Usually, because it's a new release, they're typically not going to spoil something from a new release that people haven't seen.
You say usually, but we saw that you needed to answer a specific city, I do believe, in one of the questions that Blofeld's Cat got when they spun new release.
You know that from the trailer. You know that from the plot summary. We'll get to those questions when we get to them, but in this case, new releases would have put her out ahead. And going with your strength when your opponent has the same strength was a strategical error, in my opinion. And look, she's in this space. She follows movie news. New releases, that's not a challenge for her. It's just not. So there's never been an era of film fandom where the audience is more in the know than right now. We know so much about what's in theaters, what's coming out in theaters. We are so well informed as far as what's currently going on. So I'm shocked. I'm shocked that both teams would balk when new releases was spun. Blofeld spun away with it. They wanted to go away from it. So did Rachel. She got Oscars. But in this case, I think it backfired, and that ended up being proven. So sorry for taking so much time, guys.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We'll get to the questions when we get to them, especially the question I referenced earlier. But I don't know. I've never watched a trailer where I'm looking for the "Welcome to the City of" sign in the background. But Frank, what did you think? Did you think Oscars was a strategical error, like Brian David said, or did you think this was the smart move, given that in the past she's excelled at this category?
I don't think it was that much of an error on her part because it is her strength. If it's your strength, you should be confident in your strength. So it should be okay. I mean, she didn't have no choice but to take it. Or I'm sorry, she did. Spinners rather. But
do you think Android is good at Oscars? We've seen Android go on runs.
No, I do, and I know he's good at Oscars. But I think if it's your strength, you can't just because your opponent is good at Oscars as well. Shouldn't really deter you and your confidence in Oscars. And I think by her taking that just shows the kind of confidence she has in herself to take Oscars, despite it being a strength of Andreyko. And look, it's a handicap match to begin with. You got to do it in this situation. Going real quick back to new releases while she passed it up. I was a little surprised she passed it up because you're right, Brian. She is up on new release movies that come out.
Months. 6 to 12 months of content versus 9 decades of questions and Oscars.
Right. So I was a little surprised she spun away from that. But getting spinners, I mean, you can't say, hey, that was a bad decision in hindsight. So going to Oscars, I agreed with the choice. And I got to say that William Wyler question or answer rather, I don't know what's at the top of the list for pool of the year, but I would throw that in the hat because holy Christ, that was some good stuff there. And the Serpico question, I think both parties missed the question. I think there's a little too much overthinking on that question because I knew it off the bat, but I thought parties would have overthought it, and I think that's what happened. But because she gets that right, even on a multiple choice, she gets them into answer some third round questions because it's a tie game. Then, if she misses, when she gets through her 3-round question, so that's a big kind of sting there at the end. Looking at it, but and also going to Oscars when she has gone to Oscars in the past, other people have as well. So yeah, the well might be drying up at that point and getting a little deeper. As we saw with the William Wyler question, but she pulled it off. So, it was an interesting round, and I do not fault her for going to Oscars because it was a handicap match. It is her strength. You got to go for it. And it didn't work out quite as well as people would have liked and she would have liked.
Like I said, I'm more confident in Rachel's knowledge of the last 6 to 12 months than I am Android and Robert Meyer Burnett just because they are so focused on a specific genre, whereas Rachel covers and thinks about almost everything. And we've seen those guys struggle in new releases just because they're not as active in the movie news front. But again, when you can have 6 to 12 months worth of questions versus 9 decades worth of Oscar questions, I like my odds with 6 to 12 months worth of content questions. That's just me, though.
Yeah,
Brad.
I just disagree with you, though, on that because, okay, let's say my strength, and I was a competitor, is James Bond, right? James Bond, first one was, 1962? Over 50 years of history there. Obviously not close to 90, but over 50 years of history. If I had a choice between James Bond, over 50 years of history, a lot of over 20 movies to pull from, or new releases from the past 6 to 12 months, I'm going with James Bond because I'm more familiar with James Bond than maybe movies in the past 6 to 12 months. This is a strong suit of mine. I feel more confident in that category. Same as Rachel Cushing. We know that Oscars is something she excels at. She's more confident that she will know more about the 90 years of Oscar history than she would about the last 6 to 12 months of movies that she may have covered but may not have seen, and in fear of a question that you would need to see the movie to be able to answer. So I think that her strategy was sound in my opinion.
Though. It's not true though.
It is true, Brian.
You don't have to see movies to know.
Okay, let's go. Let's go to
who stars in Hidden Figures. So question 1, Rome, is where John Wick finds Gianna.
See,
the whole
I had
movie,
no idea of that.
But the whole trailer and poster shows that he's going to Rome in this film to go do his business.
I haven't seen John Wick 2.
You don't have to see it to know that. It's in the trailer. It's on the poster.
I saw the trailer when it was on television, whatever that was, 5 months ago, and I didn't log in my brain that, oh, look, there he is in Rome. That never logged in my brain.
You're not a Schmoedown player. If you're a Schmoedown player, you're going to pay attention a bit more to trailers because you're picking and looking for those surface level details. So the whole premise of John Wick 2, he goes to Rome. That is something you don't have to watch the movie to pick up on. Hidden Figures, Kevin Costner. I've never seen Hidden Figures, but I know that Kevin Costner's name was on that poster. I saw him in the trailer. I saw him on the award circuit for that film. Bill Skarsgård is Pennywise. I saw it a month ago, but I knew Bill Skarsgård was Pennywise because he was promoting the film all over the place. So this is just another example of how new releases are not revolving around you watching these films, because
but go back to my point, though.
Is so informative.
To go back to my point, though, do I want to roll the dice on, even if they're surface level questions like you're saying, and maybe not know some of them, and go with a category I'm not comfortable with, or should I go with a category that I know? Here's
the thing. If you went with James Bond, that's a good move because the rest of the league sucks at James Bond. However, Android and Burnett have proven to be good at the Oscar category. So it's a little bit different.
Here's the thing, though. If James Bond is my strength, I don't care if I'm sitting across from Barbara Broccoli and she's my competitor. I feel confident in what I know. If I get one wrong, I get one wrong, and I hope that she doesn't. But I'm confident enough that I think I can go 6 for 6.
This new release selection of questions was so easy that these two guys went 10 out of 12 points. So that's how easy.
What were the other questions?
Eric Bana in King Arthur.
No idea.
Surface level. American-made director Doug Liman. Doug Liman was promoting the film with Tom Cruise. He made appearances all over the place with him. Wind Rivers director Taylor Sheridan. There's not a hotter screenwriter/director than Taylor Sheridan right now. So this whole misconception of, oh, you have to watch the movie to know these things, that's only true if it's a very specific detail within the movie, such as what was the color dress or what was the name of the song in the third act of The Man Who Would Be King. But that's why I suggest using new releases or going with that category, because they cover a specific amount of time, 6 to 12 months, and they typically don't want to spoil new releases for people. Thus, that's why they go with surface level questions to avoid spoiling plot points for films that not everybody has seen yet. And that is why two guys who are typically not the most well-versed in this stuff did so well in this category. And I think Rachel would have ran the table on this selection of questions. She would have gotten 12 out of 12, and she needed those 5 points in hindsight.
Frank, anything else on this issue before we get into round number 3?
Sure. I just want you guys to know that during all of that, I was reading a spoiler review for The Last Jedi. It was pretty good.
Okay. Separate issue. Very important issue. On question 3, Bill Skarsgård played Pennywise. This gave Blofeld's cat a 15-11 lead. However, Android said Sarsgaard, no K. The answer is obviously Skarsgård with the K. And obviously Sarsgaard is wrong. Sarsgaard is a completely different name, all of the actor Peter Sarsgaard. Skarsgård is a Swedish origin, while Peter Sarsgaard with the A, no K, he's from Illinois, but it's of Danish descent. Oddly enough, Peter Sarsgaard is married to Maggie Gyllenhaal. The Gyllenhaal name is in fact Swedish. However, Skarsgård and Sarsgaard are two completely different names. One is Danish, one is Swedish, like I said. They might be both of Scandinavian basis. They're both Scandinavian countries, but they're separated by water. They're separated by a huge bridge. It's just like Hedley and Heedy. It's another one of those situations where it's a completely different name. These two countries fought each other for hundreds of years. They fought 12 wars against each other from 1448 to 1814. So you can't just say these names are close enough when they are completely different, like Heedy and Hedley. So technically, Blofeld should not have gotten this question correct. Once again, Rachel's strategy misfired as she did not think to challenge Android's answer. So I'm curious as to what was written down. Someone brought this up, but I'm curious as to what was written down on the computer. Did the computer answer have it written as Sarsgaard? Did the computer answer have it written as Skarsgård? Because the answer was not Sarsgaard, it's Skarsgård. So this would have led to Rachel being up 20-17 at the end of round 3. Thus, Blofeld would have had to answer at least 2 of their 3 round 3 questions. So had this gone the way it was supposed to go, had she challenged, this would have been a completely different match that she potentially could have won.
Well, I think, I understand the history of the names, and I appreciate it, but I think that it's close enough to where, hey, the President of the United States last week called this country the President, called it the United States of America.
It's not like that though. It's just like Hedley
you don't know,
and Heedy.
but you don't know. No,
Sarsgaard and Skarsgård are two completely different names.
Skarsgård. What is one letter difference?
Sarsgaard has 2 A's at the end. Sarsgaard, Sarsgaard. Now, for example, if I said Peter Sarsgaard was named Peter Skarsgård, they would say I'm wrong.
It almost sounds identical.
It sounds identical, but the K changes the name, just like Sam Levine eloquently said, my name is Sam Levine, not Sam Slavine. That K and the subtraction of that K changes the name entirely, besides being a different country. So if I answered a question about Peter Sarsgaard and I said his name was Peter Skarsgård as the villain in Green Lantern, I would be wrong. So it's not one of these. It's not one of these. It's close enough situations. The question was given incorrectly to Blofeld. Rachel should have challenged, though. She should have challenged, and she didn't. It's her fault. And Blofeld got the break. Those are the breaks of the game, though. You have to be on your toes. You have to be alert. You have to make sure that your opponent gives correct answers, not just yourself. And she did not take advantage of that mistake. So
yeah,
she had a chance. She blew it.
I see your point, but I disagree. I think even if he said Sarsgaard, I have to go look at the tape. It could have been just a mispronunciation, and it's not Hedley Heedley. It could just be he misspoke. Just could be because he misspoke. We had someone last week call someone Robert Williams. So I mean, stuff happens.
But he corrected himself instantly. The precedent has been established, though. The precedent has been established by Heedy and Hedley.
No, those Heedley and Hedley sound different. Sarsgaard and Skarsgård. To me, it sounds the same.
Who plays Pennywise in 2017's It?
Bill Sarsgaard.
That's correct. 2 more points.
Frank, do you want to?
But he would have gotten the point. He would have gotten the point had he not added the L.
I think you're looking too much into this one, Bryan.
Had he not added the L.
Yeah,
added the L. and that screwed him.
I just think Rian Johnson did a great job on The Last Jedi.
Yeah, exactly. Round number 3, we get into, like we said, Rachel Cushing was behind. The round ends 19-18. Blofeld's Cat with the victory. The questions are, who directed the heist comedy Logan Lucky? Then we had her 3-pointer as name one of McConaughey's co-leads in the adventure film Sahara. And then finally, what affliction prevents Ben's roommate from being able to go to Vegas and Knocked Up? I will say that as round 3 questions go, these were, at least in my estimation, not on the difficult side. I wouldn't say they're on the easy side, but I think these are moderate level questions that, and I think that, Rachel excelled pretty well at them. She got 2 out of 3. And the third one, I think you have to have seen Knocked Up to definitely remember what the ailment was. But Frank, what did you think about Rachel Cushing's round 3?
I think it was a great effort, and I'm not a big fan of Sahara, however you want to say it.
Skarsgård, same difference.
So getting her to get that 3-pointer, I thought was pretty impressive. And the Judd Apatow category, I have to go back and look, but I don't think anyone's really been that great in Judd Apatow. So for it to be a 5-pointer, I was like, oh boy, this ain't gonna go well. Especially because I don't think Judd Apatow is typically a director that Rachel gravitates toward. I'm just throwing that out there. I have no basis for making that claim, but it just didn't seem like, based on her facial expression as well, it just didn't look like something that she felt pretty confident going into, especially being a 5-pointer. But to get within 1 point of tying it, to sending it back to Blofeld's Cat, to force them to answer at least one of the questions, it's kind of gotta hurt, especially when you look back again in that second round. She missed a Serpico multiple choice, and amongst other questions, but come up 1 point short to at least see what would happen. That sucks, especially in a handicap match. So I thought it was a great showing by Rachel despite the circumstances, and I was just really proud of Rachel the way she performed in this match.
I think this round 3 and this entire match made Rachel Cushing in my top 3 of favorite Schmoedown competitors with how hard she fought. Brian Davids, Rachel Cushing's round 3. Oh, and correct me if I'm wrong. The ailment was pink eye, right? Am I wrong? Am I right on that? This is off top,
Yes.
but Brian Davids, go ahead.
Yeah, it was pink eye. That's not something that you can gather from a poster or a trailer. That is a very specific detail from watching the film that you'd pick up on. Perhaps people would know Penelope Cruz from some of the marketing materials. That's kind of tough I think it's a very fair 3-point question, though. But
It's a fair one.
New releases, Steven Soderbergh, Logan Lucky, that is something that you can pick up from just paying attention to things. And Blofeld won 19-18, and I'll always wonder, what would have happened had Rachel challenged round 2, question 3. She would have forced Blofeld to answer at least 2 questions. So unfortunately, players have to be aware that if their opponent makes a mistake and the league doesn't catch it, they've got to challenge that. They've got to take advantage of such mistakes. And ultimately, it was a valiant effort despite being a handicap match. She played her heart out. She did better than a lot of people would have played, being outnumbered 2-1. So my fandom for Rachel has only increased twofold.
Yeah, like I said, this solidified me as a Rachel Cushing fan. I know in the past I've been a little bit difficult on her about maybe coming up short in the big match situation, but such a hard-fought, valiant effort by the Crusher on this one. And I think that if anybody who watched this match has to walk away an even bigger Rachel Cushing fan than they did before the match started. Brian Davids, while we're on the subject of this match, anything stick out to you in the post-match interviews with one Emma Fyffe?
Well, obviously, Ken immediately walked out. He rubbed in the return. He's returned and returned multiple times. And, he hung her out to dry. The crowd was chanting rematch. And he did that, almost miss his opportunity to congratulate Blofeld's Cat. So it was tough to to watch Rachel sit through that. It was really tough.
I want to apologize.
Where the hell were you?
No, Barham turns to all of you. Get lost. It's a thing. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I almost missed my opportunity to congratulate these guys.
No! Ken, what are you doing?
You know, it's kayfabe and whatnot, but it's still tough to see that. And she waited patiently on this guy. She put the ball back in his court. She still waited patiently. But the Jungle Princess is a seductress, I guess. And as far as the Emma view goes, Tom was saying this was planned for years. R&B said that they're going to get, you know, the belt with Android, which is strange because their stablemates have the tag team belts. So I don't know how Blofeld and the Patriots can both get the tag team belts. So R&B must have forgotten that he's in the stable with the team champion. So very strange there. Emma shades Robert Meyer Burnett, and that Android was the one who did all the work, which is usually true. But Emma was really going out of her way to defend Rachel. I think this adds a lot of credence to the idea that Fife could be managing Cushing. There's a lot of fans, a lot of polls that suggest that Cushing is the favorite for Fife's manager role, so time will tell. But Ken was trying to take credit for bringing Rachel in. That's not entirely true. Clark Wolf was the one who first discovered her and screamed at Christian to get Rachel in the league. And then Ken felt he was this forgotten champion, which is nonsense. He was mad that Rachel entertained offers from the Misfits, which, as I explained already, is total garbage. She recoiled every time Jay showed up on screen to woo her. Rachel threw the ball back in Ken's court. He jerked her around and whistled Dixie for months. And then Christian ran out and confronted Ken. Christian was upset. You know, Christian considers Ken his cohort when Alice is on the road, which is every week. And Ken blames Harloff for saying they were going to rule the world together. And Ken made the decision to rule the world and rise up via the lion's den. Boos don't matter when you're winning belts, said Ken. Now, I said a few weeks ago on the show when they announced that Thad was the interim commissioner, I pointed out a very quick moment, a very brief moment. I said, guys, look at Ken Napshock's face when Christian announces Thad, because you can see a brief moment where Ken was almost preparing himself to get up and stand up to accept the role. And instead, Thad's name was announced. So guess what? Ken used this as a reason for why he made this decision to turn heel. He said that I've been calling all these matches. I've been sitting by your side all this time, and you choose Thad? He said that throne should have been mine. So Ken was using that commissioner decision, the interim commissioner decision, as another justification for why he betrayed Rachel, as well as Harloff to some extent. So Ken had a lot of issues underneath all that work he was doing quietly. So this is the real Ken Napzok, guys. Fredo Napzok and a Ken. He's a false idol. He will sell his soul for microphones.
Frank, what stood out to you about this post-match?
You know, real quick, too, is that there's a shot of Rachel at the desk, at the table there. She's on the far left side of the frame, and you see the screen that says Nerds Watch, and she's just there by herself. And Ken has just turned on her, congratulating Blofeld's Cat on their win. And that shot right there really, really stung. And you could see on Rachel's face that it wasn't a good time to be up there. And to see Ken frolicking with the Lions Den over there, that really stung. Going back to the Emma stuff, well, really I want to talk about the Christian and Ken feud, the fight back there. I thought that was some great stuff from Christian going at Ken. And I got to say, Ken, I thought, did bring up some valid points concerning the commissionership. I thought that was fairly bad because I was a proponent of Napshock becoming the commissioner, the interim commissioner. But all this other stuff, concerning Rachel, and, that's just a bunch of nonsense to me. And if you have those issues, you just don't become like a turncoat and ditch Rachel. So you work through that stuff. And, he decided to go a different route. Emma did her best to stick up for Rachel, like Bryan said, and Christian gets in there and berates Ken. And I love that whole exchange between those two. Some of the best stuff I've seen in the Schmoedown in quite some time, and that's saying a lot because there's been a lot of great moments this season and throughout the history of the Schmoedown. But that exchange between Christian and Ken, it's right at the top for me. Loved every bit of it. But so I'm excited to see how this plays out going into Spectacular.
Yes, I think we all are. And speaking of Spectacular, on the other side of the break, we are going to kind of break down the card that is, give some analysis of the matches leading into the big event of the year, and we're going to hear from the Outlaw, John Roca. Y'all stay tuned to the Schmoedown Rundown. Hey guys, Brad Gilmore here. I know you've been enjoying this episode of the Schmoedown Rundown, and we appreciate it, but we want to make you aware of something. This isn't the only show available on SK+. There's a variety of great shows that you can check out that are all handpicked and vetted by Mark Ellis and Christian Harloff, the Schmoes themselves. So if you like this show, why don't you go check out Top 10, The Wanger Show, After Schmo, Critically Acclaimed, The Meaning Love, Outlaw Nation, and much, much more. Go over to the YouTube channel. YouTube channel is SK+. It's easy to find. Go over there, like, share the videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can also check out the entire podcast network on Podcast One. Just type in the Schmoes No Show and you will find all the podcasts for your listening pleasure. We appreciate you supporting SK+, the Schmoedown Rundown, and without further ado, let's get back to the show. What's up, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? We have a special guest with us right now tonight. He's going to talk about his big match at the Schmoedown Spectacular and much, much more. He is the only man to hold both the singles championship and the tag team championship, or the first man, I should say. He's had a great 2017. In my opinion, one of my favorite competitors in Movie Trivia Schmoedown history. Y'all make some noise for the Outlaw, John Roca. John, how are you?
Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you for having me on the show, man.
Oh, thanks for coming on. It's exciting. You know, we've done shows before, but not in this venue. So I'm excited to get you on here and talk about your big match, man. I mean, let me start off with this. How do you think 2017 has played out for John Roca?
You know, 2017 for the Outlaw has been an interesting ride. You know, I was a champion both times, having the tag team, having the singles, going through the rides at the tournaments, you know, the back and forth with Riley and I, all the stuff going on with the commissioner, Matt Nose and I coming to, you know, losing the way we did, losing the belts the way we did, watching the Patriots just slide, you know, losing the belts last year, then watching the Patriots just kind of enjoy this entire 2017 at our expense. It's been really tough. You know, we had a shot to get those belts back. We didn't get it done. We had a shot in the tournament. We couldn't quite get over the hump that was Team Action. And so it's been a good year, but it's also been a year full of lessons for the Outlaws. That's what I'll say.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree more. You've had some ebbs and flows, but that goes with life. I mean, it's just kind of a metaphor for life itself. So you have a big match coming up at the Schmoedown Spectacular, perhaps the biggest match in your team's career. Team Top 10 will be facing Team Action, and there's some pretty big stipulations. If you win, you get a number one contenders match, and you get a shot at potentially regaining those tag team championships. But if you lose, Action gets a championship match, and you have to disband for a year. My question is, why would you agree to such a stipulation?
Well, I'll tell you something. You misused the word if. You should say when we win. That's the first thing. When we win, we will get a number one contender shot. Then when we win the number one contender shot, we will get a title shot. And is Brian Davids on the show right now? Is Brian Davids on the show?
Brian Davids
he couldn't make it. He couldn't make it.
Hey, listen here. Bottom 10. Listen here. Listen here. I hear you calling me JSR. You know, I hear you call the guy the pizza guy. Let me tell you something, Brian. You motivate us. You motivate us. And so we're focused on beating Team Action. Team Action, I know, is getting fueled by Brian Davids and the light and those young punks saying all the stuff they're saying, you know, putting on sunglasses, cosplaying as heels, because the Outlaw did it first and he always does it best. And you see these guys cosplaying as heels. So they got lucky when they played us the first time. They got lucky with with getting the opponent's choice and the spinner's choice and getting the easiest 3-point question in the history of mankind. And, and we still almost beat them. I've never seen Matt Nost more angry than he was when we walked off the set that day. And in real life, I've never seen him more angry. Beyond the characters, the key fob, whatever you want to say, he was angry. And I knew at that point we had to go or I looked at him, I said, do you want to get revenge on these guys if they lose in the tag team title match in the tournament to win the championship of the tournament? And he said, absolutely, without hesitation. And Matt and I are focused to take this team out because they've been talking all this stuff about us, and the thing is, we used to be the darlings last year. We were the darlings. And then all of a sudden, some of the fans have turned on us for whatever reason. For example, Brian Davids, they turned on us and started this whole movement. And so Team Action rode this wave to beat us. And now we need to put those kids back in their place, put them back in the playpen, and teach them that real men play this game.
Let me just say one thing here. If I was Team Action, I would not have signed that contract. That's all I'm going to say. That's all.
Why is that? Why is that? Were you
there was
afraid
no upside for them to play you guys again. There was absolutely no upside for them to play you guys again.
Well, there's manhood.
It was a stupid thing to do. So
there's manhood, there's dignity, there's respect. Some cowards don't run from a fight. Real men stay and fight and prove they're not flukes.
You guys have everything to gain. They have everything to lose. So they made a big mistake, in my opinion.
You don't think it would give them credibility to be top 10 twice?
And disband them for a year. I think
disband them for a year?
I actually disagree with you on that one, Brian Davis. I think Team Top 10 has more to lose and Team Action has more to gain. I mean, they get an automatic championship match, and then Team Top 10 just gets an opportunity to earn an opportunity at the championship. So, I mean...
In a week, I'll remind you that I just said this. So let's talk about it.
The soothsayer that is Brian Davids. I gotta love him. But John, if you do or win, let me rephrase. When you win,
Brad, let me correct you. It's the Outlaw. It's not John. It's the Outlaw.
I'm sorry,
Let me correct you there.
Outlaw.
Yeah.
Outlaw.
I know you're new.
Win.
I know you're new to hosting this. You're doing a great job, but you're gonna be a couple of missteps. It's the Outlaw.
I got you. Don't worry. The Outlaw. Win. Team Top 10 wins this match against Team Action. You might, according to Christian Harloff, who's no longer the commissioner, but, he still has some deep knowledge of the game. According to him on the last episode of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, you all will most likely face Team Top That, which we saw them just recently be incredible and super dominant. Do you think, what would be your strategy going into that match, Team Top 10 versus Top That?
Well, see, people forget the scalps that are on the wall for Team Top 10. People forget that we beat the Schmoes No, who were supposed to be unbeatable. We beat them twice. They host a movie show, for God's sakes. We beat them twice. Team Rotten Tomatoes, they host an entire website about movies, and we beat them. And we beat Blofeld's Cat. Everybody thought they were going to wipe the floor with us in that tag team tournament, and we broke the records, the point records, in that tag team match. So you tell me, what's the strategy? The strategy is always the same. Play the best game of our lives when it counts. Always. That's what we do. We focus in. And the higher the stakes, the higher the competition, we rise to meet it every time, except for the rematch against the Patriots. That's the only blemish on our record in our minds, that we were not fully 100% mentally prepared to take that team on in the high stakes match. So for us, much respect to Top That, but we're coming for them. And we've seen holes in their game already that we know we can exploit if the wheel goes a certain way. We know we got holes we can exploit with that team.
Now, Frank, I know you had something you wanted to ask the Outlaw.
Yeah, I got one question for the Outlaw, and it goes back to your match with Team Action. Yeah. I want to know, are you in Andrew Guy's head? Have you rattled him? Do you think you know how to get inside his head and make him not perform to the best of his abilities?
Well, there's a slang term for when you destroy someone, you become their daddy. And in this way, I am Andrew's daddy in real life and Andrew's daddy in the game. I think I've gotten in his head because, they came at us and we got a little bit rattled up. I don't have no problem admitting that, because we were too excited to destroy them. We were too blood hungry for them. We had the bloodlust going with us, and we lost our heads and lost that match. And so... But since then, like crashing their post match interview when they lost to Above the Line, when they were getting their butts handed to them for 4 rounds. Crashing that was, I mean, you saw Matt and I just strutting in there, dancing in there, opening beers. We got right in their heads because those kids are still young. They're still learning the game. Veterans, right? Just because we can't drive to the hole doesn't mean we can't knock down 3-pointers from the 3-point line. So I'm telling you right now, I'm in his head. I'm in Andrew's head. I'm getting into Ben's head real easily. And this is the game. Once you wake up the Outlaw and you wake up Matt Nost, we come for you. Team Top 10 comes for you.
Now, Outlaw, like you said, you have a big match at the Spectacular, but another big team match that's going down is for the Movie Trivia Schmoedown Team Championships. We're going to see what many people refer to, and I've actually said before, the most dominant champions in the Schmoedown going today, the Patriots. They're taking on the winners of the team tournament Above the Line. How do you see that match playing out?
Well, listen, let me tell you something. I think this may be the greatest match you'll ever see in tag team tournament up to this point, honestly. I think these are two incredibly well-matched teams, and you can't argue that the Patriots earn your respect. Begrudging or otherwise, they earn your respect. And for us as Team Top 10, like, we set them on their journey. They hit a miracle shot when they got that question right against us to take the belts. But you got to respect what they've been able to do. They've taken on all comers, and they've beat them, and they're undefeated as champions. And that can't be something you discount. So they're great champions. However, the truth is eventually you get exhausted. Eventually, you think about it, every single time they defend that belt, it's a 5-round match. You know, you're looking at 25, 30, 40 rounds of trivia. That's a lot to take out of a team. And when you come in, someone like Sam Levine and the Godfather, Drew McWeeny, who is essentially a machine. Drew is like Goldberg. He shows up, destroys you, walks out the curtain, and drives home. This is what McWeeny does. He's just a machine. So when you put him together with Levine, it is a formidable team to take. It's probably the greatest challenge the Patriots have ever faced. Also, because they've had the belts for so long, and this team is so strong, that's why I think it's the greatest challenge they've ever faced.
It's going to be interesting. You know, the time that we actually saw members of this team go at it, we saw the insider Jeff Snyder going against the Godfather, and he came out victorious there, Outlaw. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting match. I'm really looking forward to that one. And really the whole Movie Trivia Schmoedown card. Before we get you out of here, what match are you looking forward to the most aside from your own?
I'll be honest with you. That Star Wars match with Ken Napshock versus Sam Witwer is what I'm looking forward to. I mean, this Iron Man, we've never done this. And if there's anything I enjoy, it's when Christian can bring some of that wrestling element match stipulations into actual movie trivia matches. You know, we did that free-for-all, which was amazing, essentially a Royal Rumble. And now we have something like this Iron Man match, which we used, which Bret Hart made his name doing with Stone Cold. Everybody remembers Bret Hart and Stone Cold, that incredible match. Stone Cold became a legend from that match, and Bret Hart made his bones doing those Iron Man matches. And so to see something like that go in, especially with some trivia like Star Wars, which, I mean, how fast are the questions going to come? Who's going to get that last question right? Is it going to come down to the last question? Is it going to be a blowout? You have no idea what's going to happen. These are two incredibly intelligent men who know so much about Star Wars. So for me, it's going to be something new and incredible, and see another expansion of the Movie Trivia Schmoedown in a match like that.
You know, one more thing, actually, since you brought that up, one more thing before we let you go here, Outlaw. You talk about, implementing the Iron Man match. You had the free-for-all. Yeah. We had a question here on the Schmoedown Rundown a couple weeks ago about, do you think it'd be possible to implement the Survivor Series format? Would you like to see a Survivor Series style match in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown?
Absolutely. And this is how I want it to be done. If we ever put the Four Horsemen back together, and there have been conversations, let me just put that out there. There have been conversations about a foursome. Maybe not the Four Horsemen, but a foursome that could be coming down the road here in the Schmoedown. And when we make that happen, I think a Survivor Series Schmoedown would be fantastic. And I want to invite one of your fellow panelists there to get off his ass and fly down or drive down wherever his parts unknown that he's at, that Brian David's guy, get him to show up. And I will give you carte blanche to manage the team against whatever team I put together, Brian Davids. Show your face, show yourself at that match once and for all, and let's see what you can do.
Will the OG Outlaw be returning to Spectacular? I'm just curious.
I think you're already hearing the turn happening.
Well, that's why I'm asking. Will the OG character be returning?
Well, the boys said they wanted to see the Man in Black. They said that the Man in Black, we want to see the old. What happened to the old Outlaw? What happened to the old Outlaw? Well, it's been said. You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit into the wind. You don't pull the mask off Old Lone Ranger, and you don't wake up the Outlaw. Well, their antics after their match when they beat us woke me up. And I had to go back into the cave, had to go back down into the basement and really start working out again on the wood, really start lifting weights with ropes, doing ropes, all this kind of stuff. I went back down there and rediscovered what it was that made me, but I didn't lose that better part of myself either. So this is a mixture of both, and we'll see what comes out when we take them on. Oh, and I want to say one last thing because I didn't finish up there. I think Above the Line is going to give the Patriots the best match they've ever had. I think they're gonna beat the Patriots. I think if anybody's ready to beat the Patriots, it's Above the Line. That's my prediction.
Wow. Big prediction there. I mean, I think the Patriots, that's a tough team, but I'm looking forward to your match, the Outlaw Matt Knows Team Top 10 going against Team Action. Once again, if Top 10 loses, they disband for an entire year. Really high stakes, high pressure going down at the Schmoedown Spectacular here just soon. You're not going to have to wait long. This match is coming to you very soon, as well as a host of other awesome championship matches at the Spectacular. You can follow him on Twitter at The Roca Says. That is the Outlaw, John Roca.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Good talking to you.
That was John Roca, the Outlaw, John Roca. Big match at the Schmoedown Spectacular. And guys, I think there's no better time than the present to discuss what's going to be the biggest event in Movie Trivia Schmoedown history. 3 videos, incredible championship matches, and all things in between. It is the Schmoedown Spectacular numero dos, which if you don't speak Spanish, that's number 2. And
good.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that. And there's a lot of great matches, so I think we should just kind of go real quick, not break down the match, but a quick analysis of what we think about the match and what's going to go down. And I think we need to start with the Manager Bowl, which honestly is my dark horse for most entertaining match of the Schmoedown Spectacular. Maybe not the best, maybe not the highest scoring. I think we're going to see pure entertainment. Bobby Gucci, Ricky, Emma, and Jay Washington all competing in the Manager Bowl. Let's throw it to you first, Frank. What's the stats? What's the numbers? Give us what you think is going down in the Manager Bowl.
Well, plainly, in the stat sense, these guys aren't great. Okay, I'll just put it that way. I won't embarrass anybody with low numbers right off the bat. But I will say, the guy that I keep looking at, and it's just weird, and I have to go back to his match against Makuga, it's Dagnino, Bobby Gucci. I don't know what this guy can do in this kind of match, but man, I don't know. He has me really, really curious as to whether or not he can pull this off. But your guy, Jay Washington, he could do it. I mean, he's got an axe to grind with Bobby Gucci, so it's going to be real interesting.
Yeah, Brian Davids, this Manager Bowl is interesting. Like I said, Jay Washington, that's my guy. But what do you think about it?
From the moment the Manager Bowl was announced, I posted on Facebook that this could be the best match of the night. It could be the most entertaining match of the night, like you said. And if Emma is, in fact, managing Cushing, it'd be a pretty great FU if Rachel somehow landed a number 1 contender match via Emma. That'd be the ultimate payback for being put through the ringer lately. And I just realized it'd be awfully interesting if Rachel called the Star Wars match to get in Ken's head. I guess I could have saved that point for the Star Wars analysis. But Rachel's going to have the last laugh, guys. And I think this could be part of it, thanks to Emma. Now, Ricky is also interesting just because he gets a chance to make the Beast relevant again. He could also make Critically Acclaimed relevant for the first time. So Ricky is always entertaining on the mic nonetheless. Dagnino obviously gets his crack at the singles belt if he wins, since JTE or Jeff can challenge the winner of Harloff versus Levine. Jay Washington is just playing to beat Tom Dagnino, a.k.a. Bobby Gucci, as he doesn't really have a stable right now. Brienne's done for a while. Stacy, I don't think is going to keep that stable going without Brienne. That was Brienne's idea in essence. So it's going to be a fascinating thing, and I hope it pays off to where we have a manager bowl every single year. So, Brad Harloff, what are your takeaways from the manager bowl?
Brad Harloff, that's interesting. I like the manager
Freudian
bowl.
slip, sorry.
It's all good. I like the manager bowl. Jay Washington, that's my guy. That's my pick. I picked Jay Washington. After that Inner Geekdom performance, I don't see how he isn't the favorite to win this match. But Bobby Gucci, like I said, always got an ace in the hole. Let's go, speaking of Inner Geekdom, let's go to that Inner Geekdom Championship match. Hector Navarro defends against Jason Justice Inman. Jason Inman, I hope that this is his time. He has been spectacular, no pun intended, in the Inner Geekdom division, and I would love to see him give Hector Navarro a run for his money. Frank, what's the stats? What's the stats on the Inner Geekdom Championship match?
Yeah, Hector Navarro's been the champ. He's scoring 81% through his 3 matches. We all know he just barely escaped with a win against Jeremy Johns back at the Collision. So going up against Jason Inman, who's been on an absolute tear at this point through 3 of his matches in the Inner Geekdom, he's answering 80%. So these guys are neck and neck right now. This could be one hell of a match.
Brian Davids, what do you think?
I typically don't bet on Inman in big matches, especially against Hector the Nightmare Navarro, who's the greatest Inner Geekdom player ever. But Hector's run has to end at some point, you'd think. And even though Jason has already won 2 straight via Fife and that contender 4-way match, could this be the time? So either way, Inman will have to win 3 straight to win the Inner Geekdom belt, while Hector will have to win his 3rd straight Inner Geekdom title match to retain the belt. So both players essentially will be winning. Essentially, one of these 2 players will have to win 3 straight to win or retain. And anytime there's expectations of Jason Inman, he buckles. But, can Hector keep it going another year? This might be Jason Inman's year. I don't know.
It could very well be. Well, sticking on, I should say, the Inner Geekdom feel. Let's talk about Star Wars. Let's talk about that Iron Man match. The champion, Ken Napshock, defends against Sam the One Witwer. What do you think, Frank? I mean, the stats on Witwer have to be out of the control.
Yeah, they're pretty insane. He's answered 48 out of 51 questions thrown his way in 2 Star Wars matches. That's going back to Celebration match and the one we just had here in the Fatal 5-Way last week. And he's also 5 for 5 in steal opportunities. So if he gets a chance to steal something out of your questions, he's pretty good. And then you got Ken Napzok. He's answered 33 out of 36 questions thrown his way. That's close to 92%. So these guys are right at the top. They deserve to be in this match. And it's just straight up trivia, folks. So it's going to be a hell of a match. I already know that.
It is. It's going to be a hell of a match. I think, as much as I think the Manager Bowl is the most entertaining, I'm just interested in this match maybe the most just to see what the score is going to be and how that Iron Man format runs. Brian Davids, Witwer, Napshock, give it to me.
Fredo's karma isn't going to help him in this match, especially since Sam Witwer got his Iron Man format preference. So, as I've been saying, Witwer's biggest threat is himself, as he doesn't pay attention to the rules most of the time. He doesn't listen to the announcers most of the time. So, this new format favors him tremendously. It was his idea, after all. So, he doesn't have to think about anything but writing the right answers down on the whiteboard. Add that to Anna Ken's karma, and it's not looking good for Fredo. And if Rachel calls this match, that's going to be the added component to really undo him mentally. So maybe the Jungle Princess will be there to offset that, but I think Rachel is truly going to deliver a fatal blow in response to what he's put her through in this match.
Well, we already talked to the Outlaw John Roca about his big team action versus top 10 stipulation match. Is there anything either one of you want to add on to that? Frank, you have some numbers on it?
Look, top 10, they had a rough year. They're 3-2 this year, answering 68% of their questions correct. Team action, 5-2 with 2 TKOs, and they've been answering 65% of their questions. It's going to come down, I think, to steals here. Team action is 8 of 13, top 10's 3 of 7. So it's going to be very interesting to see who gives way to one another, and that could decide the match.
Was there anything you wanted to add on to this one, Brian Davis, that we didn't go over with the Outlaw?
Once again, Action made a dumb decision by accepting this match. They already beat bottom 10, and they would have been in line for a title shot by default, especially if the Patriots beat Above the Line. I say that because if Above the Line beats the Patriots have earned an automatic rematch against Above the Line or anyone, quite frankly. The bottom 10 breakup stipulation doesn't help Action's title hopes. It's just a dramatic wrinkle to this match since bottom 10, really aren't that interesting if they're not competing for a title. So bottom 10 has everything to gain from this match, while Action has everything to lose, including a major setback in their rise to stardom that they received via the tournament. So ultimately, as these things always do, it's going to come down to the squeaky wheels. It's going to come down to Andrew Guy versus Matt Nost. Ben Bateman's going to bring it. John Roca is going to bring it. Who's going to win the battle between Matt Nost and Andrew Guy? And whomever wins that battle, their team will win this match.
I just want to make this point real quick about the stipulations for Action. Look, if they win this match against top 10, they get a championship match. But that means they get to bypass playing Above the Line, the Patriots, or Top That, or MODOK in a number 1 contenders match. So to get top 10 in a number 1 contenders match, it's pretty ideal to get your championship match. I just want to make that point.
No, they were already in line to get a title match, man.
Well,
they were already in line to get a title match.
But this way they get it faster. I mean, there's a lot on the line. I think that both competitors have a lot to lose and also a lot to gain. But let's talk about the championship that they both want, that team championship. We're going to see the Patriots, the greatest champions in Schmoedown history, the greatest team in Schmoedown history, going against Above the Line, Sam, the Godfather. This match, oh man. Roca talked about this one as well. The Outlaw talked about this one as well. The more we go down this card, I'm thinking I'm more excited for every match as we go down it. Frank, who has the statistical edge in this one?
Ooh, let me tell you, Patriots are 4-0 this year with 1 TKO. Above the Line, 4-0 with 1 TKO this year. Above the Line has been 6 of 6 in their steal chances. Patriots just 2 of 4. Now you look at Above the Line score percentage, they're answering 84%. And you line that up against the Patriots, who are answering nearly 77% correct. So there's a pretty nice gap between their score percentages there. But the Patriots, they are such good gamers when it comes to the fourth round, the third and the fourth round in a title format. So that could be the difference. Above the Line only has 1 match with that kind of experience. We'll see if it comes to be a major factor here against the Patriots.
The Patriots, like I said, greatest team in history. I don't think that's arguable. But after hearing those stat lines from Frank, man, that's actually really crazy how close these two teams are on paper. Brian Davids, give me your thoughts. You know this game inside and out. You know the history of this game better than anybody I know. What do you think about the Patriots' reign as champions and their contenders going into the Spectacular?
It's hard to bet against the undefeated Patriots. However, they're playing an undefeated challenger in the 4-0 Above the Line. And as JSR stated, this is the best team they've ever played in Drew and Sam. They're a balanced team they're as balanced a team as any title contender they've ever played. Wolves pretty balanced, MODOK pretty balanced, but if the Patriots lose, make no mistake, they'll get an automatic rematch because they've been so good for so long. And when you succeed to this degree, you get privileges that other teams do not get, such as MODOK. So one more point regarding Action. I just can't imagine a scenario where a team has to go backward to go forward. It doesn't work like that. They already beat bottom 10, and yet they have to go backward to do it again in order to go forward. What could go wrong, as they say in the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom trailer?
Well, top 10 finds a way. And speaking of the championships,
they do indeed.
They always find a way. Speaking of the championships, the biggest championship in the Schmoedown, the singles championship, the main event of the Spectacular, the man who holds the gold now we used to refer to him as a commish, and now we refer to him as champ, Christian Harloff, going against Sam I Am Levine. This is a big match. Sam Levine, so dominant in both the singles and team tournaments this year, winning them both, winning the free-for-all. I mean, the guy's had a spectacular 2017. Frank, the numbers got to show it.
Well, look, Sam Levine, he started off 0-2 this year, and since then he's been on a 4-game win streak. It's the 7th best 4-game win streak in the history of the Schmoedown. He's answering nearly 71% of his questions correct. But you look at Christian Harloff, he's been 4-0 this year, and he's in the midst of a 5-game winning streak dating back to last year. And in that 5-game winning streak, he's answering 71% correct of his answers. And he will now try and become the first player to ever win 6 games in a row. Not even the great Dan Murrell could pull that off. So Christian Harloff is not only going to try and retain his title, but he's going for history to try and become that first person to win 6 games in a row in the Schmoedown singles.
Brian Davids, how do you see this match playing out?
After Sam won free-for-all, he challenged the winner of Riley and Roca. Instead, he ended up playing Dan Murrell at Collision. So as a result of that, he got some pretty good karma on his side, and he's used that karma to win 2 tournaments, singles and teams. So he's got karma on his side, hopefully for a little bit longer, and he's got the knowledge to potentially knock off Harloff, but Harloff has that home court advantage. This is his house. He built it, and he's had a pretty charmed last 12 to 14 months. So I'm rooting for Sam just because I selfishly want Harloff to take a step back from playing and focus on the development of the league, the growth of the league. I think it's best when we have a champion that is a face for the league, but is strictly a player versus Harloff being all these different roles. And yeah, Thad's the commissioner right now, but I think it's best for Christian to focus on growing this amazing game. So I'm happy either way, but I'm rooting for Sam, and Sam's got a chance. That's all I can say, thanks to karma.
Well, it's going to be Gilmore versus Davids because I am rooting for the commish, the champ, Christian Harloff.
That's why I called you Brad Harloff.
Well, there you go. Freudian slip, as you said. And I think that he's going to make history at the Schmoedown Spectacular. And we're going to be covering all the action from all the championship matches, the stipulation matches, the Manager Bowl. It's going to be good, as my man Booker T says. Real quick, guys, before we get out of here, real quick, give me 15 seconds or less. Frank, who won the week for you?
I'll tell you who didn't win the week instead. That's Fredo Napzok. He didn't win the week at all.
Brian Davis, who won the week?
Rachel Cushing won the week because she showed class, grace, and elegance despite being embarrassed on a grand stage. She still scored 20 points by herself, nearly beating Blofeld single-handedly. And like I said, folks, don't just focus on this one aspect of the story, because the story is going to come to a conclusion at Spectacular, and I expect the Crusher to have the last laugh and the last crush.
Oh, well, not only do I think Rachel Cushing won the week, she also won my heart. A valiant effort in that handicap match, Rachel Cushing. I expect big things in 2018. Frank, why don't you got anything you want to plug, any social media, any projects you're working on?
Yeah, just check out SD Rundown Stats on Twitter for all your latest stats on the players ending the year. There's some player cards, if you will, that I'm putting up on Twitter and in the MTS Facebook page. You can check them out there. End of the year stats for the players. And also, you can follow me just on my own personal Twitter, FrankieJ29, also same name for Instagram.
Look at that. BD, Brian Davis, what do you got to plug, man?
BDF331 on Twitter, filmschlubspodcast.com. Next week, I'll be reviewing The Last Jedi with Julianne Emery of Better Call Saul and Preacher fame, as well as my friend Aaron from The Hollywood Reporter. So look for that to drop sometime next week.
Oh, man, I'm going to check that one out. Film Schlubs Podcast. You got to check that out. And for me, I want to thank everybody for sending the birthday wishes my way. Very much appreciated. And check out my band 2011, that's spelled out 2 words, 2011's new single, Falling Back. It's available on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Tidal, SoundCloud, wherever the hell you can get music. It's somewhere on there. Check it out. I'd really appreciate it. And make sure you follow me on Twitter, @Brad Gilmore, everywhere. And follow this show, SD Rundown, on Twitter for the latest in the movie trivia Schmoedown. Until next week, I'm Brad Gilmore. He's BD Brian Davids. That's my man Frankie Frank, who is going to have his citizenship revoked in Chicago. And we will see you all next week.